Welcome back to Valiant Hearts.
Never-ending attacks and counterattacks. Freddie and Emil hunted the elusive...
Oh, Emil's going off on this vengeance spot as well. I thought Emil kind of wanted to get the heck out of Dodge.
Remember, the regiment has also Carl in it, so Emil wants to rescue him.
Rescue, right. Has he forgotten the fact that Carl's technically being drafted by them?
The problem, Jova, is that it's a misunderstanding, and it's one of those situations where Emil doesn't really care about the sides of the war. It's, again, similar in a bit in, like, Paths of Glory, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense, but does Emil not realize that if he brings Carl with him, Carl's probably going to be in trouble with the opposing side?
You'll see where this goes. Right, well, keep in mind also the fact that Emil has almost nothing to lose at this point, in terms for himself, obviously. So he's trying trying the best that he can for the situation.
Anyway, more World War I trivia.
Yeah,
the dogs of war.
In this case, also the usage of dogs.
Makes sense.
Some species were actually bred specifically for the war. And here's instead one thing that was an important thing that happened in World War I. Another one of the interesting toys that the factions decided to use. Chemical weaponry. In this case, I think it's chloridium gas. Forgot if it mentioned already in the text, but in case you're wondering what this interesting thing does, as soon as you breathe it, you collapse with your own lungs full of water, basically. It's simple chemistry at its most deadly, and I forgot when precisely they started using it, but as soon as they did, the War of the Trenches became even worse than it was before, because now the soldiers were forced to fight in an ambient they were not comfortable with, and they had almost no way of defense against this. Yeah.
On April 22nd, 1915, chlorine gas was used for the first time by the Germans.
We're going into that.
Yeah, well, thankfully the dog has the common sense of not staying too high, and with a simple command, there you go. Again, the game takes a bit of a artistic license for the sake of being a bit more, lighter in terms of tone, and for the sake of having gameplay mechanics. In this case, using Walt for the levers, like this, for example.
Hey Emil, you maybe want to gear up a bit more, before you head into the
No,
thicket?
he's just okay doing his Shovel Knight cosplay.
I'll say. Although he's missing the armor, that's kind of important. And it's actually a shovel, not a ladle, dude. Unless there's a ladle knight. I mean, there's a hat knight. There's an anime knight, or whatever the heck that boy is. And, there's the boss. That was a nice, awesome cameo.
Anyway, for this one you need basically an excuse to have Walt getting in here. So there you go, you pull the crate, and then you pull it down. Another thing that you got, one of the objects that you got was a Canadian identification tag. Similar to the Americans, there were Canadian regiments at the start of the war as volunteers. Later they became more mandatory as soon as the USA joined the war. There you go. In order to represent kind of like the usage of the chlorine gas, we have these cartoony like machine that's pumping it full of here and there. So you need to reconvert the gas so it explodes. There you go. These unfortunately was the only line of defense that they had against the chlorine gas.
Urine.
Clove soak. It's disgusting. But it did its job on a chemical purposes, because it did convert the gas in simple water that did not hurt the person. It was literally a method of survival. It was either having that or die horribly. So yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. By moving, there you go. This is a simple puzzles that, by doing this, augments the pressure of the machine, like this. You just need to do another time there, and you're done. It's actually, again, it's actually really simple. If I use a complaint that I can have towards the game is that I honestly think it's
A little
too
too easy.
here and there. Yeah.
I mean,
No, you can tell this is supposed to be more of a story-driven game.
Yeah. Like we said previously, it's more about the story and less about being a game with what Ubisoft did. And I'm honestly okay still with it because it's good for education purposes. As I stated multiple times, I'm all for it for edutainment games of all kind.
I guess the only issue I have is like, well, okay, bit of artistic license though, suggesting that the Germans supposedly had an under-network ground of pipe for their gas.
Comic book. It looks like one of the things of the comic books of the Silver Age.
Last I recall, they just threw canisters of it at people.
Yeah, similar to grenades, but like in bottles. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, another hint. Always, when the game tells you to go right, always try to go left because there's probably a collectible that you can find. In this case, once again, all the letters that you can see in the collectibles are genuine artifacts from World War One. No made up when it comes to those. So it's actually really interesting seeing what went through the mind of all these soldiers.
I guess one thing that helps is like, well, if ever there's something that people are enthusiastic about hearing about, it's the World Wars for sure. Obviously more so World War II, but World War One's no slouch either.
Oh, there you go, that's the Zeppelin they're looking after. And it's time to run because they're dropping more bombs. One is the one that changed the world, started changing the world mostly because of all these tools. It changed, like I said, it changed drastically how war was fought and the shape of a lot of nations. 2 was the one that basically was the wake-up call for the whole world to say, calm the fuck down, basically.
Yeah, also people like to remember World War II a lot better because there was, well, obviously there was stupidity going on, but
It also had more documents to it. World War One was still in a time where journalism and correspondency was still relatively limited. So even propaganda, for example, was a bit limited, and documents from that era have not survived. 2 instead had more materials that was both available at the time and that survived.
there's also the matter that people do find stories of World War II more honor-bound than those of World War I for obvious reasons.
There you go. Now you have a small race against time in order to save your friend from the gas before it reaches him. There you go.
Thank you, my friend.
And keep in mind, since he is the only one who has the snippers, you know, you kind of need him when there are passages blocked with barbed wire.
Okay.
Yeah, we get it.
Good to see that time in the kitchen spent has helped your digging skills.
Yeah. I also love how this smoke is animated. Oh, there you go. This is our last main character.
To be
And
continued.
we pretty much the rest of
A Belgian
Yeah, there you go.
student living in Paris.
A
She was
Belgian
hard on
medicine
the
student,
trail of her
but
missing father.
precisely.
For once, fate smiled on them. They were all going in the same direction.
Surprisingly.
So when's it all gonna fall apart?
You'll see.
German squadron spotted.
And this introduces another minigame. Where basically you have to dodge obstacles and bombs at the sound of classical music.
Ha! Cute.
It's kind of like a
Cute is
rhythm
not
game.
the word I'd use to describe this.
Oh god, they're
This
shooting at
This
us.
is actually classic Ubisoft type of comedy. This is something that Michel Ancel would come up here. And keep in mind, he's not really that responsible when it comes to this game. But since it was made with the UBR engines. Obviously, it takes a bit of homage to Rayman, which the engine was built for.
If I remember correctly, wasn't Michel Ancel also the one? Him and his team, wasn't Michel Ancel and his team the ones who actually engineered the Ruby Art engine, kind of much
I
like
think so.
Kojima, much like
they made
Kojima
this
Productions
specific-
made the Fox engine.
It all ties back to Rayman's history as a franchise. As you may remember, after Raving Rabbids, Rayman pretty much fell and almost never recovered. But at some point, Ansel wanted to bring it back, but doing another 3D game was out of the question for the moment for different reasons. So he wanted to do something different and go back to the PS1 era with the 2D.
The original Rayman.
Yeah, with the original Rayman of 2D. So he had to create something in order to, accommodate that.
Okay, what's the
But,
name of this piece?
I forgot specifically this one. For example, Jova, it's sung a cappella by Spiral Mouth during the Walrus chase sequence in Crash to Insanity. I keep forgetting what specific piece is.
Wait, you sure? It sounds a bit different than that.
There you go. There is an achievement if you manage to survive the sequence without getting hurt. Unfortunately, yeah, Freddie gets hurt. So now we are in the dead smack in the middle of the German trenches, and we need to find a stealth way to get some medicines. There you go. There you go. Those are basically signals what when you should go out of the trenches and when not. When a guard is not moving, that's the that you need to use Walt.
You know, better hope that this dog isn't a German one, because he or she, whichever gender the dog is, may react to certain Germans saying certain things if it is a German dog.
No, let me check specifically which species he... We actually stated which species Walt is, but I forgot which one is.
Also, Walt sounds very much like a male name for a dog.
It wouldn't be the
Yeah,
first
it
time
is.
that somebody's used a
There you
male
go.
name to describe a female, or vice versa.
Doberman Pinscher.
A
That's what it
Doberman.
is.
Ah,
But I think it's lesser species, and I guess the cartoony design makes it looks more, smaller.
it does look a bit thicker than a Doberman from what I've usually seen.
Yeah,
Well, it's a crossbreed, so
yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Like we said, during the war, many different breeds were made. So
Yeah. Crossbreeds among dogs, those are plentiful.
well, men is a
products of
cross, so
engineered evolution, I guess.
Oh, what's she a cross between?
a Patterdale and a Terrier.
Oh, nice. So I'm guessing she's rather small,
Yes.
but she's loud.
The reason,
Teo,
yes.
if you don't mind, check the chat. But no, well, like I was saying, no, I actually don't mind the cartoony style for this, because
Me neither.
Reminds me of, like, a
I don't
horrible
mind it
mystery
either.
kind of thing, if any of you have ever seen those.
I've seen plenty
I mean,
of cartoony
remember,
styles on
this
mature
was,
stuff.
This was the time where Ubisoft was doing was chock-full immersed with Tom Clancy stuff in Assassin's Creed. So we were submerged with all those military, like TPSs, all almost one looking almost like the other. So this one, treating a similar theme but in a completely different way, was super refreshing.
I actually think this suits the period very well.
Yeah, I think what helps is the color scheme, especially.
Mm-hmm.
You can
It's
do
not
something.
super colorful, but it's not even super bleak. I think it's just the right amount.
I can agree with that.
Here you need to basically wait until the troops goes back and forth until you need to get the items that you need.
Alright.
Go. Again, it's also useful for some collectibles. Yes, they actually used periscopes in the trenches. It kind of makes sense considering someone needed to pick up, but try to have a look up in order to spy. on the other side.
What I'm getting from this is that none of these soldiers have depth perception at all.
No, we're operating on Metal Gear logic.
No,
Well-
they're operating on Metal Gear 1 logic.
To be
Yeah.
fair, to be
Because
fair.
I know, like, you have to, it's like suspension of disbelief in 2D games anyway, but this is like,
I mean,
you guys need to get your eyes checked out.
to be fair, they're probably just doing. Actually, I have no idea what the heck they're doing. Maybe they're doing an exercise
Patrolling
regiment.
exercise.
Yeah.
So maybe they just think Emil's the cook, for all they know.
Well, they don't see. Keep in mind, if you're spotted, you're basically dead. So.
Oh.
Yeah, the reason, like, I was about to say, the reason we don't shoot to Walt is because dogs were super important in the war, no matter the species. So even if it was an enemy one, it would have been still useful to keep around.
Go figure. I guess they would have to do a lot of retraining, though.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, if you don't remember, there was a person that was tied with Walt by the time Emil was at the German camp. They had trainers specifically for this very purpose.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Like I said, when the game doesn't have licensed, music or royalty-free, I honestly think the composers did a fine job. And bam!
Well, that was slightly cute from when he was
Don't
letting them
worry,
lick him.
he's just passed out a bit.
I'm sure that'll do the trick.
Actually, no, this is actually a collectible. Nevrostinine, it's a combat drug, basically.
Oh. Well, in
Remember,
that case,
remember,
maybe not.
well, it's another thing that needs to be mentioned. Like, it kind of obvious that since of the stressful life that there was in the trenches, many soldiers basically used the combat drugs in order to either cope with the stress or to basically be more efficient in battles. This is also why a lot of veterans were basically just wrecks when they came back from the war.
Oh boy, we're in no man's land.
Yeah. Basically, now we need to plant some TNTs in order to create a way in order to pass.
It's ironic, really. Normally, no man's land is the most dangerous place to be in during trench warfare, yet for us, it's safer than on the German side.
We're
This
the
is
ones making it dangerous, if anything.
This is also because right now there is no active conflict in this portion, so the guards are more lenient in just simply patrolling.
True.
Well, the other major dynamite thing we need to get is from the other side, so there you go, you need Walt to get there.
Mm-hmm.
No one's
I
gonna
think.
find a dog suspicious anyway.
Like I said, at worst they still need it, so... Forgot what it actually is.
Here's just hoping that nobody notices that down body we created.
Thankfully no, Jova. There you go.
He's just sleeping on the job! Nothing to see there.
Another thing is that in true point-and-click tradition, yeah, you actually can have an in system, but I didn't use it for the sake also of giving some kind of challenge. Another thing, oh, there you go. Another thing is that in true point-and-click tradition, when you're doing the right thing, the game gives you a clue an audible clue in terms of whether you're doing the right thing with a dong sound effect. There you go. Thanks to the smoke, they cannot see you anymore, and we can.
And to them, it's just an everyday bombshell, probably.
There you go. With this, the Sentinel is always patrolling here. So obviously we need an obstacle that moves and we can get behind.
I love how he has no suspicion about the minecart itself moving.
It's just the wind.
Right.
Hey, it's more believable than a hedge, okay?
Well, that must be some strong wind we're having. Strong enough to move
That
a
we
cart.
can't feel anywhere else.
Oh boy.
Oh. These soldiers, this particular soldier, you cannot take out immediately, so you need to actually pass behind him. There you go. First thing first, you need to find a way to get Walt here, and there you go. That chest is what you need, but probably you need something to activate the lever.
Give Emil this, it takes bravery to go into enemy territory with nothing but a dog and a spoon.
Yeah, a giant spoon. And keep in mind, he's technically an old man, so even with that.
He could have taken one of Freddie's guns with him, but nope, he decided to do it like a man.
Actually, if I recall correctly, Freddie doesn't have guns. He just have the snippers that he used. The clips that he used for from cutting barbed wire.
Well, then
Whatever. The game is actually surprisingly very tame in a sense, but none of the main characters actually use guns.
Huh.
They actually, I think it was something that Ubisoft stated, like giving the game has a kind of a message of its own. Like I said, also for the artistic license purposes.
Ironic, considering is how it's a story set during World War One.
It's showing a bunch of characters managing to overcome the situations without having to resort to guns most of the time. They still have stuff like explosives, obviously. It's kind of a bit of a situation, kind of like with Snake in the Smash Bros. Games.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Now you need to get. I think it's the key from Walt in order to get to the infirmary. But first off, another collectible.
Ah, British coins.
In this case, British coin. We already established that the soldiers were paid a misery, but he was just another type, in this case, the shilling. Walt, come on.
I don't think that guy's gonna give you any scraps, Walt.
Oh, like I said, you can use Walt in order to distract the guards, in order to take them out or sneak behind them. So the dog AI is actually very responsive to commands. There are simple commands, it's nothing like, say, Trico, but it's still... I honestly still think he made a fine job.
Mm-hmm.
Here, instead, you need to use both Walt and your perspective in order to move the crane in order to get a handle, in order to place it there.
Interesting.
There you go, you need to move it like that, all the way up there. I don't remember if I said it, but the only major controls that I don't like is actually moving the handle. Similar to games like God of War, you need to rotate the analog stick.
Ooh,
But
the
the problem, no 6-axis, thank God. No, it's rotating the analog stick clockwise or anti-clockwise. The problem is that for some reason in this game, the sensitivity is a bit off. Like you never really feel like you're managing to, rotate it fully, even though you're trying your damn hardest.
Curious to know, what's your grudge with the 6-axis anyway?
Maybe it's just my bad luck, but I never managed to make it work properly.
I guess the weird thing is, like, well, if you're gonna do
Not yet, I still need to get to the whole package, Flower Flow and Journey.
Although I will say this, though, I think...
Journey, basically, Joe, but the creators of Journey made a game before they made Journey called Flower. For the PS, it was a PS3 exclusive, and it was regarded as the best game to use the 6-axis on the PS3, and the Blue Point remaster on the PS4 makes even better use of the DualShock 4's 6-axis.
I think part of the weird thing about
also use it as well.
I'm sorry, what?
Remember, the team also the game about underwater creatures.
Yeah, you mean... Oh.
Anyway.
Oops, did we do that?
Sorry.
Unfortunately, the Baron escapes away. But, surprisingly enough, the scientist is our girl's father.
And now the Germans are gonna...
And
now the Germans are gonna have some drinks at Renee's cafe.
Wow, so they just got their stronghold taken out by a guy using a spoon. That's a new low.
Where they would at last pick up the trail of the elusive Baron and his Zeppelin.
What a ragtag team.
Yep. This is actually my favorite sub-chapter of the entire game for different reasons.
Gameplay or story?
Gameplay. Story-wise, it's gonna come later. What's my favorite? That's because here Freddie kinda, again, blinded by his revenge, rushes in order to get to the Baron as close as he can. So obviously, at first you control Freddie. You need to. It's actually very simple. You need to get to the Cathedral of Rams.
Makes
In case
sense.
like the trivias are saying, basically the Battle of Rams was one of the more devastating of the war, since it was city-based. There were no uses of trenches, but instead there were huge bombardments, and most of the city actually got destroyed in the process, sadly. The cathedral was mostly spared, though. Surprisingly enough, a common thing that in both World War happened, it didn't happen all the time, mind you, but most of the time happened, is that historical landmarks, monuments and churches were almost always spared by the bombardments, either because they had civilians in them or because they had historical value to the cities. The only major exception, for obvious reasons, was Berlin at the end of World War II, but we know why.
Uh-huh.
And there you go, that's the statue of Jeanne d'Arc.
If only she could see things now. She's probably laughing at them from the grave.
She
What was
just,
that
remember,
face?
Jova, she just got burned out a bit by the experience.
Yeah, she hit burnout, so she had to call it quits.
Anyway, unfortunately, we need to catch up later with Freddie, so we control Emil, and now what we need to do is to move that thing in order to unlock the passage. Unfortunately, Emil cannot do it alone, so he needs to recruit all the help that he can, but there are several people scattering the level that you have to help, and in turn they will help you moving the object. This is actually very close to a traditional point-and-click situations. It reminds me kind of like Monkey Island, for example, where you're in a small hub and you're helping different people that ultimately help you towards your main goal.
Oh, will we also get a rhyming game part then?
Sadly, no, Jonah.
Going back to the top...
Remember-
Oh, go on.
No, but first go ahead. I'll tell later.
Going back to the topic of 6-axis controls, I think the problem with them
sure.
is that, you know, I think it's like trying to do motion controls with only 6 axes. That's, like, you know, the problem is with limitation there.
What I admire Heavenly Sword for the different stuff that he did and for being the first major attempt by Ninja Theory. I honestly think that it aged very poorly, and the 6 axis did not help it because there are so many mandatory sections tied to that, and none of them is funny, believe me.
It's like, let me put it like this.
They don't even make sense because you're not guiding a flying animal or say Nariko using a flying object, but you need to guide projectiles that Nariko tosses, either an arrow or a cannonball. So it's
Let me put it like this. You want to do motion controls, just do motion controls. Don't limit them to 6 axes, though. If you feel you don't have enough resources to do more than 6 axes, don't do it.
One usage of a 6 axis that makes sense to me is balancing when a character, say, has to walk on a tight rope or piece of wood. So that makes sense. You
Yeah, sure, that
literally need
works.
to balance out.
Uncharted 1 on the PS3 actually did that, but not a lot of people liked it, so Blue Point removed that in the remaster.
I honestly think, from what I remember, Pedro, the only major gameplay element that people did not like were the QTEs, because if I recall, they were not implemented fully or something.
Well, it's not. Honestly, I don't mind the QTEs in Uncharted 1. I mean, I think people shouldn't even. Granted, I'm by no means an expert, but I don't even think it's should be even called QTEs. If by QTEs you mean, oh, there's a crit about to fall on Nate, so press circle to avoid it when the circle prompt.
That is technically a QTE.
Yeah. The thing compared to a game,
tradition. When people think of QTEs, they usually think of stuff like in Shenmue or God of War.
Well,
not
that's
so
the
much
thing.
on Uncharted.
they
Well, that's the
function
thing,
also
Pedro.
the same there. The main difference is that, unlike in a game like God of War, Uncharted 1 only use them very sporadically. They're not even that much in the game. That's why I mostly asked, because I honestly, like, keep in mind, remember, I'm one of the most tolerant person towards QTs, so...
Think about it like this. QTs are like gimmicks. Gimmicks are technically everywhere. The thing is, like, well, people don't really call stuff gimmicks when they don't really like them. For example, you know, the Wiimote itself is a gimmick, but, you know, it's essentially everything
It depends
with every
on how
game,
you use
essentially.
it. You get games that
That's
use it
everything,
masterfully,
basically.
yeah, and you get instead games that have it as a mandatory thing and ultimately ruins the product.
Yeah. That's exactly my point. It's like, well, I mean, in some ways, basically anything that's added on new for, like, you know, starting with that game is technically a gimmick. People just don't often apply to that when they like it, though. Again, I don't think there's a TV trope name for such, but again, think of
I don't
QTs like
think so.
yeah, think of QTs like gimmicks. Like, well, like, the definition itself does fit. It's just people only really use it in a specific context in how they see it.
Yeah. But it's mostly the primary thing about Uncharted 1 is that the game didn't. The game is still good, but it does show it's
Early
a lot
installment
bit of its
weirdness.
not just that, because remember, it was Naughty Dog's first PS3 game.
We know how the PS3 was a bitch to work on, yeah.
So not just that, but they ran into a lot of problems from the technology standpoint because they were trying to do a lot of things that they'd never done before. So basically, it was kind of a nightmare when it comes to making that game for Naughty Dog. They've already said that. Which is it was much better helped by Bluepoint's remaster, because Bluepoint adapted the much more responsive gameplay engine of the sequels, and at the same time improving on a lot of things like removing the QTEs. Because the only real QTE that's left in the Bluepoint remaster is, oh, press this button to dodge this crate, and that's it basically. Aside from that, there's no successes, there's no QTEs. But yeah, War Godmother certificate.
Yeah, similar to World War II, also there were stuff like war titles that the nation should have invested upon, or war certificate that helped the families at home.
Guess it makes sense, you know. Try and raise morale as much as you need. It's
When it came, well, it also spread the message that during war it wasn't just the army doing the fight. It was also the there you go. That's how you can die, by the way.
well, crud.
A lot of people. Sorry.
It was also the how the entire nation needed to do something. You needed to do your part back home. You know, that's what the message. That also one of the fascinating things about the propaganda cartoon of World War II, the way how boldly they push these kind of messages.
Speaking of pushing,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
You
were
were
saying
saying,
Pedro?
Pedro?
It also another thing that another game that comes to mind is how Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 handled the Mario running on top of a ball stages. A lot of people like to complain about those stages. Personally, I don't mind them. I honestly find the successive style controls in those stages to be pretty much just fine, and I can really and I happen to be really good at those stages.
to be fair, that's
I'm okay with them. The stages that I usually more not keen into are the one on the manta ray.
the main difference is like, well, those technically aren't 6-axis because there's a lot more freedom than just the 6-axis things. 6-axis used to only, from what I recall, isn't 6-axis only really used to be described with like PS3 or PS4 games?
Doggo, no.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I swear to
it's
God, if
time
that
for-
dog, I swear to
it's
God, if
time
that
for a
dog
boss fight,
dies,
actually.
really, I swear to God, if that dog dies by the end of this plot,
No, believe me, Jova. You'll see.
You're not gonna like Plague Dogs then, Trevor.
dogs, never heard of that game.
It's an incredibly mean-spirited
I'll tell
movie.
you after we're done with this part, Jova, believe me. There you go, the Baron actually tries to toss grenades at you, and you need instead to use what remains of the organ of the cathedral to block his own grenades into his compartment. You need to use both Emil and Walt's commands.
Using
There
an
you go.
organ, there's something
Yeah.
karmic about those.
Again, despite mission answer not working, there is a lot of the traditional Rayman charm.
Yeah.
It clearly feels like a game made by Ubisoft.
It's funny, really. By being patient, Emil actually gets to face against the very guy that Freddie is chasing
Oh,
after.
don't worry, he's not done yet. Because now it's time to actually pass it to Freddie instead.
Oh, ho ho.
On the roof of the cathedral, of course. Yeah, whatever.
Well, now it's personal then.
Yeah. Here the Barons keep tossing the grenades, but not all of them explodes on the spot. It's similar to the Cortex battle in the first crash. You need to, in this case, pick up the grenade that's not exploded yet and toss it to both the engines of the Zeppelin 2 times each, and you're done.
I'm surprised he doesn't just go, "It's fine! Drop these bombs on him, you idiots!" Like, seriously.
All the characters, like I said, all the characters speak the three major languages: French, German, and English in very simplistic manner. It's not gibberish. They make sense in the context of their own languages, but it's extremely simplistic.
So I just have to wonder, why doesn't this guy just, I don't know, have the wind drop the bombs
The
onto
Baron
the
is
cathedral?
kind of stupid, if you haven't noticed.
It's like I said, is he based off of general...
It's a cartoony villain for the purpose of his story.
It's basically Joe, but these Germans are like the Germans from Allo Allo.
Oh, and look at that! It's Emil's son-in-law. Oh god, is he about to die?
Watch out, you're gonna crash! Ah!
Well, thank goodness. Oh, right.
How do
Basically,
you drive with
yeah,
your
all
hair
three
covered with your
characters, all
eyes like
three
that?
major characters that are interested in our major characters are on that Zeppelin, and we're about to crash. But
Of
we will see what
course!
happens in the next part.
And that was Valiant Hearts, and they all died.
It was a
so-
short game.
Well, I guess in Freddie's case, you know, the Baron dies, so there's his vengeance.
We'll
Yep.
see what happens in the next part. See ya.
See
See
ya.
you then.